Before we get into today's show, the latest Dane Brugler NFL Draft Big Board from The Athletic, if you want even more 2026 NFL Draft coverage right here on Chat Sports, show it by liking today's video. At number one for Dane is Ohio State linebacker Arvell Reese, who has been incredible this year for the Buckeyes, playing linebacker, both off-ball, on-ball. I think he's been most impressive as an edge rusher. I think he is very dynamic in that regard. The Buckeyes have had a lot of fun deploying him, a lot of success deploying him in a variety of ways. In many ways, kind of like the Jalen Walker conversation, which has turned out great so far for the Atlanta Falcons. I kind of think edge is his home in kind of a similar way to what we've seen from Micah Parsons so far in the NFL. The number 2 overall player for Dane Brugler in his updated NFL Draft Big Board, and the number 1 overall quarterback is Alabama's Simson. He has been awesome this year, repeatedly making some big-time throws. Maybe not as dialed in the past couple of weeks, but has been extremely productive over the course of the season. The biggest question mark for Simson is this. He hasn't played very many games, 9 starts going into this upcoming week of college football, and has looked good in them, but it's a very small sample size that historically doesn't always lead to the best results. It is worth mentioning, he already graduated from Alabama. He's only a redshirt junior, and he grew up around a football program because his dad was a college coach. Still, I'm not surprised he's the number 1 ranked QB. There are some concerns overall, though, across the board in this quarterback class. Number 3 is Caleb Downs, the Ohio State safety. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's best near the box. Not an accident. To the top 3 Ohio State players. Kind of funny how that all works out there. Safety, positional value means he could maybe slide a little bit, but Downs at number 3. Number 4, maybe the first true surprise, is Keldric Faulk. I like him a lot. He doesn't post the big-time production. He's only got, I think, like 2 sacks this year, but he plays well. He's not always deployed in the best fashion for Auburn. Very young, extremely talented. I'm a little surprised he was ahead of Rueben Bain, who has slowed down a little bit, but I do think top 10 is reasonable for Keldric Faulk. But beyond the top 3, I think there's a lot of debate to an extent. Maybe I would put Bain at 4, but that's just me. Number 5 is Jeremiyah Love. Again, much like Caleb Downs, positional value, but he's awesome. 16 touchdowns this year. This is easily the best back in college football. It's not even a conversation. Was a little surprised to see Rueben Bain fall down to number 6. A little bit of a unique body type. Not the longest arms, but is like 6'3", 275, kind of that bowling ball almost type of frame. Dane comped him to Brandon Graham, which I do like that comp quite a bit. Number 7, Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana. He was number 20 on Dane's preseason big board. Has been very solid so far for Indiana. I do wonder how high the ceiling is, but he has a real chance to be the first quarterback drafted, especially since all the guys we're talking about can go back to school if they so choose. Who do you think will be the first quarterback drafted in the 2026 NFL Draft? It's the pinned comment on today's video. Head down there and go vote. Number 8, Jordyn Tyson, the Arizona State wide receiver, currently battling a hamstring injury. But the great stat from Dane here was 18 touchdown catches over his last 17 games, which is super impressive. Number 9 is Jermod McCoy. We haven't seen him play yet this year, and I don't know if he's going to declare, if he's going to play at all this year. He was awesome last season, though, but the injury does kind of make it a bit of a question mark for him as we move forward. Number 10, oh, look, another Buckeye, Carnell Tate, who is just the latest in a very long line of elite-level wide receivers. He's taken a step forward this year for the Buckeyes, and it's showing up on film. First offensive lineman, Spencer Fano, the right tackle for Utah. I don't think there's, the elite level, like even Rashawn Slater caliber prospect in this year's class, but I do think Fano is probably the top tackle. Another quarterback, number 12, Dante Moore, who I would not be surprised if he goes back to school. In fact, I would guess that he does. He's young. He's only a redshirt sophomore. Oregon is going to open up the bank to make sure he comes back. A lot of talent. I don't think he's a fully realized product yet, but I've seen a lot of good stuff from him this year. Number 13 is Peter Woods, who I know Dane had him number 1 going into the year. I was quite high on him. I've been a little bit disappointed. That's kind of the entire Clemson defense to an extent, but I think there's a lot of talent at the 3 technique spot. David Bailey, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech, who transferred in from Stanford, excuse me. I don't know how he's been better as a run defender. I don't know if he's ever going to be elite, but he has been so productive as a pass rusher. It's really hard to overlook that. Number 15, LaNorris Sellers, who I also think could go back to school. In fact, if I were advising both of these players, especially Dante Moore, I'd probably say, let's go back to school. And in LaNorris Sellers' case, I might go transfer. I might try to find a better spot that can better develop me. It's not led by Mike Shula as the offensive coordinator. But Sellers' upside is as good as anybody in the class, but the play has been very inconsistent, even with the offensive line causing issues for the Gamecocks. Of these two, who is more likely to turn pro this upcoming draft cycle? LS for LaNorris Sellers, DM for Dante Moore. We will go rapid fire on some of these to save time. It's 50 people, right? Francis Mauigoa, the tackle out of Miami. Some buzz about should he move inside to guard to be better maximized there. I think he's an NFL starter, though, on the offensive line. Kenyon Sadiq, look, he's not Brock Bowers. Duh, we all know that. There's no one that's Brock Bowers. He's not Kyle Pitts. But he's young, extremely talented, and showing growth as a blocker. Kadyn Proctor is really unique. 6'7", 360. Some people think he is a guard because he can sometimes get beat around the edge. Inconsistency remains an issue that I have repeatedly seen. Mansoor Delane, the quarterback out of LSU. He's not going to be elite height, weight, speed guy, but he just doesn't get beat. I love his game. I'm a huge fan of the Virginia Tech transfer. I think Makai Lemon could even be a little bit higher. He's not the biggest, not the fastest, but he makes plays. Not the same, better prospect, probably not the same NFL impact. Last USC receiver who I remember was like not the biggest, not the fastest, but gets open pretty well, slot only, was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Number 21, Avieon Terrell. Again, a not great grouping of Clemson players who haven't been as disruptive. Not the biggest guy either, 5'11", 180. His brother is A.J. Terrell, by the way. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better on Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, and boy is it as of late, but the feeling of being right never gets old. Keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. PrizePicks is the only app to offer stacks. You can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup for college football and professional football. One of the Thursday night partial PrizePicks lineups here. Drake May, more than passing yards. Stephon Diggs, anytime touchdown. Zach Ertz as well. You can also follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app in the new feed tab, whether it's a friend, someone whose picks you like, or somebody partner even on PrizePicks. Do it all in the new feed tab. If you haven't already, go download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Number 22 is Denzel Boston, the wide receiver out of Washington, who has been highly productive this year, despite the Huskies not having maybe the most successful season the way they thought they were going to. Part of a pretty solid, not spectacular wide receiver class, although other guys we mentioned previously have very much boosted their stock as of late. Caden McDonald, the run-stopping defense. We got big guys here, right? Denzel, 6'4", 210. McDonald is 6'3", 330. I think is best as a run stopper, not necessarily an elite-level pass rusher. C.J. Allen out of Georgia, who has been the really good main focal point of a Georgia defense that hasn't been as good as we are maybe accustomed to. I'll give Mel Kiper some credit here. I saw on his big board he had Brandon Cisse as his number 3 corner. Dane's got him now at 25. He calls him one of his biggest stock-up prospects. I have not paid much attention to the South Carolina defense because the edge isn't eligible this year anyway, focusing more on the offense. So, not going to lie to you guys, I am not too deep into his game, but very much is now on my radar. Sonny Styles, number 26, the other Ohio State linebacker who, going into this year, I was like, he's the best one. He's a senior, and he's 20 years old. He's awesome. Part of a very, very strong linebacker class this year. Big-time faller, frankly, is TJ Parker. It's like 16.5 sacks over his first 2 seasons. He's got 2 this year. I'm very curious how he finishes the year because the stock is very much down. Vega Oyane, the offensive guard out of Penn State, the top interior lineman for Dane, by the way. Moves pretty well for a 35-pounder. Another NC State transfer, Cisse was as well, KC Concepcion, who has been very fun for the Aggies. He's not the biggest. He's kind of... There's going to be Debo comps, okay? Because he kind of gets the ball in short areas and does some stuff and will occasionally get a handoff too. But he's athletic and a pretty dynamic player with the ball in his hands. Another run stopper, Amari Washington, out of Oregon. A little bit inconsistent at times still, but again, you don't find 6'3", 300-pounders who move the way that he does. Yet another height, weight, speed prospect who Dane has been super on board on, even been back to his summer big board. Chris Bell, 6'2", 227, and will run somewhere in the 4.4s. That gets you drafted pretty early in the NFL. Zion Young, who has been really productive this year for Missouri, especially as in pressures, and the sacks have slowed down a little bit, but that's not all his fault for Missouri. Very fun personality. I mean that in a good way, too. Alabama's Jeremy Bernard, who has kind of been the best receiver for Alabama, not Ryan Williams this year, by the way. Kind of crazy on that front. Not the, I think, most twitched up player, but one of those guys who, he'll be a good 2 in the NFL because he's going to be able to get open and be reliable for you. If you guys want even more NFL draft coverage, you come to the right spot. Hit that sub button here on our NFL Draft YouTube channel for even more free videos. Let's go to the other Tennessee corner. That's Colton Hood for the Volunteers. I think he's been very solid in the absence of Jermod McCoy. Multi-time transfer, Auburn, Colorado. Third program in 3 years. Only a redshirt sophomore. Having a good season, though. I am going to be higher, I think, than the consensus and the NFL. It's probably going to be more of a draft crush, like a draft media crush. Cassius Howell, the edge out of Texas A&M. He has been incredible this year. But he does have sub 31-inch arms, and that is an extreme outlier that will turn him away from some NFL teams. Christian Miller, the Georgia defensive tackle, has been a good run defender. Not as impactful in the pass rush. That is part of the Georgia scheme. Very different play style than Big Citrus, Dominique Orange, out of Iowa State. Another giant defensive tackle this year. This is 6'4", 325 pounds. Caleb Turnian, next up here, the offensive tackle out of Northwestern. Weird profile. He's 6'7.5", 320 pounds. That's tackle size. Dane's got him at 32.5-inch arms. That is extremely unusual, but has experience at both tackle spots. The other Notre Dame running back, Jadarian Price, who is only a junior, by the way, also averaging 6 yards per carry, has multiple 100-yard kick return touchdowns as well. That's not going to get him drafted in the top 50 alone, but with the rule changes in the NFL, does help him out a little bit. I think the answer is 1. I think one running back, Jeremiah Love, goes in round 1 of the 2026 NFL draft. Does somebody else sneak in? Let me know in the comments of today's show. It's funny how some years there's a lot of similar builds. It's a banner year for the big, tall, long, big, height and both weight edge. Quincy Rhodes, listed at 6'6", 275. Got Rueben Bain, who's pretty big. Keldric Faulk is pretty big, body mass-wise. Rhodes, the one who's had a very good season for a struggling Arkansas team. The other Utah tackle, Caleb Lomu, only a redshirt sophomore, so I would not be surprised if he went back to the program for another year. I think adding more power is key for him. One of Dane's favorite guys, he's mentioned before, Jake Golday, the Cincinnati linebacker. He was a defensive end for Central Arkansas, and then Bearcats put him in kind of more of the Sam strong side linebacker spot. Coverage issues aren't always there, but with the neck like that, it kind of looks like a Sam linebacker, doesn't he? Mateo Uyunglele out of Oregon. Again, big guy, 6'5", 270. I want to see a little bit more dominance. He is so big and so athletic and so powerful. He should be more dominant than what he is. He just leaves a little bit of meat on that bone. Another one of Dane's guys, the top Mid-American Conference player this year, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety. I like a lot of what I've seen from him. If you haven't caught any action, you can check it out this week. I believe Toledo plays my alma mater this week, Miami of Ohio. He's a damn good safety product. R. Mason Thomas, again, this is the undersized edge. I don't know if he's going to be an elite-level run stopper, but the motor, the burst, the pass ability is very much there. Caleb Banks is a weird one. Great size. He's 6'6", 334, kind of like Javon Kinlaw size in the past. 35-inch arms, great athlete. Has hardly played because of a foot injury. So top 50 is right, but I have no idea where he ends up going. Emmanuel Prignon, who has been the best Oregon offensive lineman this year. The other guy we'll get to here in a little bit. Wyoming, USC, Oregon has become one of the better tackle, probably going to be a guard in the NFL, but one of the better offensive linemen in the Big Ten this year. Darrell Jackson Jr., another big defensive lineman, 6'5", 340, 35-inch arms. The draft's just full of these guys. Still needs pass rush development, though. Dylan Thieneman, the Purdue transfer to Oregon, has been very good. Not superstar. It doesn't have to be the same level of impact guy maybe he had to be for Purdue. Just put a little bit less pressure on him, frankly. I think top 50 minimum for him. And then the other Indiana player on this list, no Elijah Sharott, by the way. Carter Smith, the offensive tackle, 6'5", 315, really good as a run blocker. 0 sacks allowed this season, which certainly feels like it is worth mentioning. Notables not on Dane's big board that I do want to give some brief love to. All the other quarterback prospects. Everyone else did not make it, which I think is actually correct. Arch Manning is going to go back to school. No one else has blown me away yet. I know he's a big fan of the Cincinnati kid, Brendan Sorsby, but I don't think he's a top 50 guy. Chris Brazzell actually does some real route running stuff for Tennessee, worth mentioning. Isaiah World, the hope was he's going to have a breakout year for Oregon. Hasn't happened yet. The other Texas Tech edge, Romello Height, is maybe a fringe top 50 guy. Little surprised LT Overton not on there. I think he's fringe top 50, if not into the top 50. Many of you might be surprised by no Anthony Hill. Dane not as high on Hill. I think there could be a disconnect from like the PFF side of things with like the preseason scouting to maybe some concerns over coverage and maybe some instinct stuff for Anthony Hill.